Tonight, Democrats are looking at a very divided party and a divided House because many want to impeach this president. Speaker Pelosi is working pretty hard to block her party from a mission destined to fail, but less strategic Democrats are determined to push ahead, even after learning absolutely nothing from former special counsel Robert Mueller's hearings. In fact, many 2020 contenders and Pelosi's own colleagues say that the hearings actually strengthened their case. Watch.
The responsibility of the Congress of the United States of America when a president breaks the law is to bring impeachment charges.
There are 10 clear, separate incidents of obstruction of justice.
I think they're impeachable offenses and the president should be tried for.
The president did everything that he could to obstruct the Mueller investigation.
That the House of Representatives should begin impeachment proceedings against this president.
And this cannot go on, and it's up to Congress to safeguard the Constitution, and we will do it.
Yeah, what about safeguarding the rights and privacy of Americans, right? Don't forget why this whole Mueller investigation actually happened, right? I mean, think about that. Think about the politics of all of this. Think about the politics involved when you have members of the FBI going to secret courts to get secret warrants to spy secretly on an American who just dares to work for the Trump campaign. What kind of infringement on Americans' rights is that? Anyway, this is what the Democrats want to focus on, impeachment. Do Democrats really want to be known for that going into 2020 when the economy is actually stronger than ever? And a majority of Americans approve of how things are going and everything that President Trump has done to strengthen our economy. Joining me right now, a member of Congress who thinks the impeachment effort is really ridiculous, yet they continue it. Oklahoma Republican Mark Wayne Mullin. Representative Mullin, good to have you back on the program. Good to see you. So this is their strategy. How's that going to work?
Trish, look, thank you, first of all, for letting me come back on. It's always good to be on with you. But their strategy, what else can it be? They can't run on the economy. You have a historical low unemployment. You have there's more jobs out there that are available than there is people on unemployment lines. So what are they going to run on? They can't run on his policy because his policy has been effective. At the end of the day, all they have is to go after this. It started with collusion. The Mueller report says there was absolutely no collusion, so now it's obstruction. The Mueller report came out. It doesn't really have a clear picture of obstruction, so now they're dug in, and the only thing they can do is continue this witch hunt to try to impeach the president. What else do they have? It's their only
socialism,
choice.
Right? They got socialism.
Hey, we got that. That's right. You always have socialism. You can always go back to that.
I think Bernie ought to stick to that, and I'll tell you something. You're talking to a red-blooded American capitalist, right? So I have no use for socialism, and I think you go around the world and you see how many places and how many times it's failed for sure. However,
it's called freedom. That's why our country's great.
Politically speaking, one of the reasons Bernie Sanders was successful was because he was preaching to a choir that wanted something different, right? They wanted something to vote for. They don't want something to vote against. So if Bernie were smart, and I don't buy this. I don't buy socialism. I think it's the worst recipe for an economy you can encounter. But at least it's something policy-wise. It's not just I hate Donald Trump, which is what they're sticking to.
Well, I compare this Mueller report to like the Hillary Clinton emails. The line was already drawn in the sand before we beat that horse to death. And when we went into this Mueller hearing, everybody already had their mind made up where they're going to be anyways. Sure. I don't think the Mueller report it really changed anybody's mind. But you're right, at least Bernie was up front. Here's what's happened, though, with socialism. The more we debate socialism, the more the people start realizing they don't like it, which is why now our new studies and new reports are coming out saying that the majority of the American people like Donald Trump's economy. It's been effective for them. There's jobs, and the pay raises are going with it. They're bringing home more money now. So there is no place for them to run unless they're going to dig in with socialism. And how are you going to compare socialism to the capitalism which takes place with American freedoms? Or are you just going to try to paint him as a criminal and say, no, he's a criminal, he's a criminal, he's a criminal, with no evidence to back it up?
You know what stunned me about yesterday's hearings Representative, was the lack of knowledge that Robert Mueller seemed to have about sort of the everyday facts, right, that would go into a case. We played some sound last night for Corey Lewandowski, who was the 2016 campaign manager, in which Robert Mueller didn't know who Corey Lewandowski was. I mean, the campaign manager of the very campaign that you're supposedly investigating. He didn't know what Fusion GPS was or is. Fusion GPS at the center of this whole thing, right? Because they're the ones that went out and commissioned that initial report that fed into the FBI's evidence, so-called evidence for getting a FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page back in the beginning. So what does that tell you about who Robert Mueller was playing the part of, so to speak, for some kind of a system that wanted to take down the president?
You know what I got when I was watching it and going over the clips on this? I honestly realized that I don't think he actually read his own report. I think there was people that put the whole report together. Well, no, I don't think he did. I think he participated in it. I don't think he read his whole completion. And I will be willing to say most of the Democrats on there, I will guarantee you most of them did not read it completely. I read the Mueller report. It was the hardest read that I think I've ever read through. It is very, very difficult. But if you read it, you wouldn't have been asking some of the questions that they said. You wouldn't have been Jerry Nadler going out there saying, we have evidence. We have evidence of obstruction. There's no question he's a criminal. How can you say that?
If you get through Volume 1, you'd realize there should never have been a Volume 2. Because there was no collusion, period.
That's right.
So
they should have stopped
at what point, did Mueller know, did his team know there was no collusion, and yet they continued to pursue this? They continued to pursue it actually right through the midterm elections? I mean, that strikes me as highly, highly unethical.
It was political.
Were they trying to put the president and anybody close to him in a position where they were supposed to admit to something that they didn't do?
Trish, the hatred to this president up here in Washington, D.C. is so bad. I try to remind everybody back home, look, over 90% of Washington, D.C. supported Hillary Clinton. How out of touch is that with the rest of the American people? And these same people that are investigating Trump, their families and they live right here in Washington, D.C. Their hatred towards him is spilling over in everything. And it's like, guys, give me a break. Let's move on. I didn't support Obama either. But I didn't hate him. I wouldn't try to tear down the presidency because of him.
By the way, you do that and you're tearing down the country. So at some point, there's a total lack of patriotism. There are people that were rooting for this president to have had some collusion, with Russia. They wanted to see that. And I'm thinking, what the heck do you guys want? You want that? You want to see that the president actually maybe conspired with Vladimir Putin to steal the election? I mean, how would that be a healthy thing for this country? I certainly, hope
Trish,
to God that's not the case.
I'm on the House Democracy Partnership, where we partner with young democracies all over the world. I get the privilege of visiting with these young countries and trying to help stand up the democracy that they look to us as an example. And I cannot tell you how often this year's political system is brought into the conversation.
I believe it.
And it's actually brought up like to a big brother that you're disappointed in some action. And that's what people need to understand, that this isn't just about America's politics. This is
you've got a bunch of Democrats that are sour grapes because they didn't win, and they're piling on. And listen, this is what happens in banana republics, right? What happens to the outgoing leader? They often throw that one in jail, or somebody who becomes the leader, they're trying to throw him or her in jail. I mean, that's just the reality of these places that do not have smooth transitions. Let me quickly ask you, because this is just breaking here this afternoon, Congress just showed a moment, a rare moment, I should say, of bipartisan unity tonight, because the House passed a 2-year budget deal. But the deal is facing some criticism for out-of-control spending. Did you vote for it? What do you think?
No, I didn't vote for it. And here's the reason why. What we just handed the president is a 2-year budget that is full of debt. And this puts us on a path. If we don't do something about it, this puts us on a path of, in the first 4 years of this president's presidency, we're going to be spending more money than Obama did in his last 6 years. That's not acceptable. We can do better, and the president has asked us to do better. But he was he was pushed into a box because we have to take care of our men and women in uniform. We get that. We're fighting several fronts on the war on terror, but we're financing it on the backs of now my great-grandchildren, not just my children and my grandchildren. We have to do better than this. And yes, it was bipartisan, but that doesn't make any difference.
Have not fallen because of military conflicts necessarily. They've fallen because of debt. You have only to look at the fall of Rome. Let that be a warning for everybody. Take a look back in those history
and it repeats
books.
itself.